Hi, y'all. We're tuning in for another episode Back That Radio Show. I'm your host, Andreas, and this is Music and Business Talk. And we have Jack McCarthy, who is an entrepreneur and the co-founder of IndieX. It's a music marketing agency that helps entrepreneur. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Indepreneur, you got it.
Entrepreneurs that helps Grammy-winning multi-platinum artists and indie artists alike generate massive direct to fan sales through e-commerce. So we're definitely going to get into that. Jack, thank you for taking the time out your day to come onto the platform.
Oh, thanks for having me, Andreas. I'm st super stoked and honored to be here.
So I see all of the guitars in the back.
Yep.
So a true musician, huh?
For a very, very long time. Yeah, I've been a musician my whole entire life.
So, okay, so then I like to have these conversations with people like yourself because not only you've been a musician, but you're also a business person as well. And sometimes, and I'm sure you've experienced this where you either, great at being a musician, a creative, or you're great at business and you don't really get to see a lot of people who can merge the two together
Yeah.
successfully.
Yeah.
When did you realize, you could do both?
That's such a great and interesting question, and it's woven
Hmm.
so much in my life in various eras. From
Hmm.
like a very young age of playing in bands, I started playing guitar and writing songs probably around the age of like 9 or 10. I
Hmm.
started recording music when I was around 12.
Hmm.
Was doing basement recordings with like a 4-track cassette recorder, got into
Yeah.
digital recording, studied music production in college,
Hmm.
got out of college and started doing touring work, guitar tech work, touring guitarist work, and found myself in social media marketing kind of just by, I'll call it chance, really. Necessity. I was between,
Necessity.
yeah, necessity. I was between gigs, um,
Uh-huh.
and I started doing some consulting for small businesses, some nonprofits, some online businesses, and I kind of found a knack for it. The
Hmm.
creativity. I grew up, as social media was coming up.
Hmm.
Zanga and MySpace were very big
Hmm.
when I was in high school, and
I don't know
Facebook
if
came
people
out.
realize MySpace anymore. I don't know if, the new people with social media realize,
Yeah.
what that platform was and
Oh
how
my
it was
gosh. Yeah.
a catalyst for everything else.
Yeah. It was the MySpace walked so everything else could run.
Exactly. It's like
Um,
having time on your friend list and like it being one of your top friends was a big thing.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That was social proof in so many ways. But I had grown up as social media kind of developed into what it was. And
Hmm.
so I kind of had a little bit of a creative knack for it. But it was really during college and the first few years after that I recognized that as a creative and someone that was passionate about building a career in a creative industry like the music industry, that I most likely was going to have multiple revenue streams,
Hmm.
and that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was never someone who really wanted to be working for someone else, having a job, very non-traditional in that way, I guess you would say. Uh,
Hmm.
or at least that's how I felt as a kid.
Yeah.
But what I realized that it was really just the entrepreneurial creative itch that I needed to scratch. And that led me into this crazy career of building this music marketing company,
Hmm.
going down the career of building marketing agencies, helping artists grow their business. And to loop back around to your question, which is really where I
Hmm.
was going with this, is I'm so I'm so in love with the idea of
Hmm.
marrying creativity and business. And I think that artists and creative
Yeah.
people of all kinds are really uniquely positioned to be really great at marketing, to be really
Hmm.
great at business, because you have this creative energy that you pour into the art you make. All
Hmm.
you need to do is channel it in a slightly different direction, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden you've got a fuel that, you know, people that aren't as necessarily
Hmm.
similarly creative, they don't have that, but you
Yeah.
do. And I think a lot of artists don't realize that. So the hesitation of being, you know, businessy, uh,
Hmm.
it's it's actually, I think, a little bit misguided. And when you can tap into that energy, all of a sudden a whole world opens up for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And like you said, it's the businessy that I've run into with a lot of different artists
Yeah.
who look at it that way. But I was like, y'all have so much creativity. It's like I tell artists all the time, why aren't y'all like writing jingles and using your craft for small businesses to where I'm like, you'll get paid for, doing the jingle, but then also you get way more exposure. You're out there more. I've seen some people do it with like lawyers and stuff. And they went on to like, have other opportunities generated for them based off of that experience and then working for those particular businesses.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true. And I'm always encouraging artists in the same vein to look outside of what's being, you know, championed in the music business
Hmm.
alone. Because if you look in other industries that are oftentimes, years ahead of what's going on in the small music industry, as far as
Hmm.
marketing goes, for example, or as far as sales go,
Yeah,
when you look outside and you see like, oh, well, that's really interesting what they're doing over here. How can I apply that to what I've got going on in my business? Again, you take that creativity that you have, you analyze something that's going on in a completely different space potentially and bring it on over. And now you've got an edge. You've got something unique that you can bring to your audience, to your customers.
yeah.
And that's really powerful.
So you're in the Philadelphia music scene, or your geographical location is there, correct?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Born
How
and
is
raised.
that market for you? And then also bringing your services to the market? Because I'm sure you was probably like one of the first like music marketing. Excuse me, you're in the Philadelphia market scene, music market scene. So when you decided to, start the business and, you know, Philadelphia isn't like known for like, huge music, hub. I'm sure it has something there, but it's not like Nashville, LA, New York, Atlanta, places like that. And then it seems like what you're doing is very innovative, right? Music marketing. Like I had a music promotions company, so it was in the same vein back
Mm.
when I was in college in 2005, 2006 ish, something like that. And I noticed that it was so new of a concept that, a lot of people didn't get it. What was your journey in bringing your business to life in that area?
Yeah. So I born and raised in the Philadelphia area, came up in the music scene here in the punk scene.
Hmm.
I'm a as you probably know from anything Philadelphia related, we are very proud of where we come from.
Yes.
We bleed green in a lot of ways. Um, so I love the area. You
Yeah.
know, the music scene, especially as I was growing up, was the punk scene in particular was really, really tight knit. Great local venues, great
Mm-hmm.
bands and artists supporting each other, great promoters. It certainly changed over the years. When INDEPRENEUR started as a company and
Hmm.
I came into it as a partner with my partner Kyle, the way that it really spawned was it kind of transcended local barriers, which I guess like many internet
Hmm.
companies do. Like we have a team all over the country.
Hmm.
I'm here in Philly. My business partner is in Orlando. We have
Hmm.
folks in Nashville.
Hmm.
We have folks on the West Coast. We have folks in England. So we're kind of all over the place, and our client base is quite the same way.
Hmm.
Sort of serving clients all over the world. The way that we actually got started is really interesting. My business partner Kyle, I actually discovered him online. I saw a Facebook ad for what was kind of like the fledgling first seeds of what Indepreneur was doing, which was an online course. He was teaching some artists because
Hmm.
Indepreneur is like a kind of like a three-tier company where we have the agency IndieX, which I primarily head up, where we're working, directly with artists at the agency side, but then we also
Hmm.
have coaching and education that we're using and helping artists who are kind of not at the level where they're ready to hire an agency yet. Either
Gotcha.
getting their feet wet, building up a business for the first time, or trying to get their first, get their first fans, get their music heard for the very first time. So we've got
Hmm.
this sort of three-tiered approach, depending on where you're coming from and how deep into building a business you are. But
Hmm.
I actually found Indepreneur in its first stages. I was probably one of the first customers. I saw an ad.
Hmm.
Kyle, my business partner's face was on it. I was doing, like I said, consulting in social media at the time and
Hmm.
digital marketing. And I saw this guy and I was like, I like him. He seems to know what he's talking about, but he's talking about it in music. And I was like, man, I've been thinking about this for such a long time.
Hmm.
I really dig what this guy has to say. Bought the thing. We started talking, and a few months later, we kind of were following each other's journeys and keeping in touch. And he said to me, "Hey, man, I'm building up an agency side of the company. I know you're good at building agencies. What do you think about us partnering up together?" And kind of the rest is history. That was back around 2017, and
Hmm.
here we are today, almost 10 years later.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting ride.
That I bet it has. And then, about to hit the 10-year mark, I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen the stats on that as far as just business in general, but a lot of businesses don't make it to 10 years.
Yeah, for sure.
Majority of them fail.
Yeah,
So y'all
yeah,
been able to stand the test of time. And the fact that, technology is changing, what I'm saying, industries, AI is doing a lot of stuff and disrupting.
oh
Y'all
yeah,
already deal in a creative space anyway. So what y'all do is very hard. It's not like, it's you're not like selling like a good, or you're not selling like a hamburger where people can automatically see the value in it. You're
yeah.
providing a service, and then like you say, with the educational component. One, I was having this conversation earlier. I tell people all the time that service-based businesses are harder to sell than good-based businesses.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
see, you definitely understand the struggle
yeah.
that you go through, because yeah, I use the education component. You gotta, demystify how people look at stuff. They don't see the value for it like right up front. You got to educate them a lot and really build that value.
Well,
What was like? Go ahead.
it's so interesting you say that because building service-based business is totally it's absolutely hard. And a service-based business that's serving, clients and customers who sell something that also is not tangible. Music
Mm-hmm.
is it's not really a physical good that like solves a problem. It solves like existential problems, like I
Mm-hmm.
feel something deep in my soul.
Yes.
So it's an interesting chain for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a double whammy too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
again, the service base for the artist, and then being a service to them, and just getting them to that point. What was like one of the big hurdles that y'all was over to overcome that you remember?
Oh man, there's been there's been so many to count. I think the biggest one that we still like square up against every single day is
Hmm.
the way that the music industry approaches marketing still to this day
Hmm.
is very focused on making artists, especially at like the level of artists that we serve at IndieX, for example, who are
Hmm.
primarily like artists that have a well-established fan base,
Hmm.
getting into the hundreds of thousands to millions of fans. So much of the marketing is still focused on make someone look as famous as possible. It's about perception of
Hmm.
fame and
Hmm.
not necessarily about how do I capture an audience and take them from people that are just orbiting your world to actually being customers and building a sustainable business, something that you
Hmm.
can actively rely upon, that you've got customers like any other business on the corner or any other business online that relies on its customers
Hmm.
for revenue and profit. The music industry, the way that even today, 10 years
Hmm.
after we've been started doing this, the music industry still focuses so much on the perception of
Hmm.
fame and size, and then everything else like revenue, profit,
Hmm.
and what you do with your customers is kind of an afterthought.
Hmm.
Even in like the smartest teams, I still come across it as an afterthought. That's probably like the biggest hurdle that I would say we've overcome, but we're constantly needing to overcome it over and over again.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely get that. I think, just from the experiences I've had within the music industry itself, and when you're talking about like, monetizing, like you said, hundreds of thousands of millions of fans, I think it's still more about control,
Yeah.
from the label standpoint, where, they're putting up X amount of dollars, and they want to make, what I'm saying, at least 10, 12, 15, what I'm saying, return on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So they designed the system to where, they're not really educating the artists as much. Artists are being, like you said, sold on the perception of fame, and fame doesn't get you money, but having money will get you fame. So,
Right. Yeah.
it's excuse me, it's very interesting that they still fall for that. So I like the fact that y'all base one of y'all strategies on direct to consumer market and teaching artists how to do that. I've been saying that for like years.
Yeah.
One, I always encourage them to where's your database? Like, what do you mean a database? I'm like, what? I'm like, every independent label that you researched, every business, everyone has a database of customers they can reach out to, especially when they want to, see the trends, see what's coming ahead, that they need to, what I'm saying, get rid of some inventory, have fire sales, whatever the case may be. You have to have a way to let people know. And I don't know what the disconnect is. What has been your experience with that as far as like y'all are teaching artists all the time, and even though y'all are coming up on 10 years, is it still a problem that a lot of artists have, especially when they're trying to go from just being a creative to a business?
Well, it's super interesting because it varies based on where an artist is at in their, career
Hmm.
stage, I would say. But even at the highest levels, it's so fascinating that I'll I'll do a consultation with like a Grammy-winning artist, and I'll be
Hmm.
talking with their management team, and I'm thinking of a very specific example right now where we were onboarding a client for a big album launch a few years ago, and
Hmm.
the conversation around their data and their database, there was no consolidation of it at all. It was a matter of like, well, the a merch company used to own the store, so they have the customer list, so we'll have to get that from them. And the email
Hmm.
list, like, we're not really sure where it is. It used to be owned by the previous label, so we don't really have it. So we're kind of starting from scratch here. And so
Hmm.
there's no consolidation in so many instances because there's third parties or middlemen, and this is at like some of the highest levels of the industry where the consolidation
Hmm.
is just not there, or it's owned by a label, or it's owned
Hmm.
by a management company or a third party, merch company that has the licensing rights. And so data is really fragmented. So we spend a lot of our time, especially with larger artists, working with them to try to bring everything together to say like, okay, here's a clear picture of where your business is at from your audiences online that we can
Hmm.
look at, the size of those, your subscriber list, including people that have, bought from you, and then your
Hmm.
customer list, people that have very specifically bought from you,
Hmm.
excluding people who haven't. And then can we figure out how many people have bought from you twice, three times, four times, so on and so forth. And that kind of consolidation is a lot of the initial work that we do. And then for artists at the, kind of growing level, the nice thing about artists at that stage is they haven't been poisoned in a lot of
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lot of people, hopefully, they don't have a lot of people in their pockets
Hmm.
or separating those lists,
Hmm.
separating those database. So it's really helpful that, now I think in 2026, we are kind of in a place where like direct to fan or D2C is becoming a bit of a buzzword in the industry,
Hmm.
mainstream, which
Hmm.
is cool because we're like we're kind of over here being like, yeah, we've been saying this for years.
Uh-huh.
It's a
Uh-huh.
little bit of vindication,
Hmm.
um, to hear that going on. But it's more important than ever now for artists to be aware of when we talk about direct to fan, it means you own it.
Hmm.
It's under your control, not somebody else saying direct to fan for you. It's
Hmm.
yours. You need to own it. And so I think that's the hurdle to get over right now in 2026, where like a lot of artists are talking about direct to fan or hearing about it, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of